Keep the ring, loser. That was the caption under a photo of my engagement ring, my grandmother's ring, sitting in a takeout ramekin of ranch dressing on Ava's Instagram story. Someone screen recorded it. Someone else slapped it on TikTok with a sound that hits like a slap. By lunch, it had 2 million views. By dinner, ESPN-style meme accounts were slow-mo replaying the moment she flicked the ring toward the ramekin like a free throw and whispered, "Splash." You think you know what humiliation feels like until the internet teaches you new notes. People who'd never seen my face told me what kind of man I was. Broke, boring. The kind who dates up and pays in vibes. Ava's text to me, the one she showed her friends, and then posted for the world. Keep the ring, loser. Became a punchline strangers used to roast their own exes. I learned a lot about shame that week. Shame is sticky. It climbs your throat and makes you swallow yourself. The thing about viral is that it doesn't stay in your phone. It follows you. The barista at the coffee shop tilted her head at me with a look I couldn't read. Pity, curiosity, or that surge people get when they're close to a car crash. I was that. A handsome little wreck the city could rubberneck. I should tell you how we got there. My name's Noah. I write code that fixes other people's messes. I used to believe potential was a kind of currency. Ava believed potential was a joke. We met at a nonprofit gala where her agency, Wilder Monroe, handled the brand. She was head of accounts, the kind of woman who could step into a quiet room and make the air stand up straighter. Auburn hair, the haircut that says I know a Paris hairdresser's first name. We were gorgeous on paper, a downtown apartment with exposed brick and a plant we kept alive for 3 seasons. On our fridge, a magnet that said, "Build the life you can't stop thinking about." It was a gift from her. I thought it was a blueprint. She thought it was decor. I bootstrapped a product nights and weekends, a reconciliation engine that made enterprise accounting less like a scavenger hunt and more like a map. I called it Suture because that's what it did. Stitched broken ledgers. Ava called it my little side project. She gave me a deadline the way weather gives you a deadline. I didn't hear it until the wall of rain arrived. 2 months before the ranch ring, her tone changed. Girls' nights multiplied. New clothes appeared with tags still on. Her phone lived face down, like it couldn't bear to look me in the eye. I asked softly, because softness was always our rule. She said, "It's not about someone else. It's about something else, Noah. I can't marry you someday." And then she did what people do when they have already left. She looked for a stage to make it final. She found one in her group chat first, then on her close friend story, then on the public feed when the algorithm smiled. I wish I could tell you I responded with dignity. I didn't. I shut my laptop, left Suture's dashboard blinking in the dark, and walked until Austin's heat lifted the sweat off my skin, and the sky went the color of a bruise. My best friend Jonah called because of course he'd seen it, because everyone had. He said, "Don't give them a show." I said nothing. You can't talk when your throat is full of splinters. I slept at the office that night. Office is generous. It was a studio sublease above a boxing gym that smelled like rubber and men who didn't lose on the internet. At 2:17 a.m., the Ring video pinged my phone again, this time from my mother. No text, just the link. She didn't know how else to ask if I was okay. Moms are a soft place to land, but mine learned life by clawing, not by cushioning. She raised me on 2 tips. Save every receipt and never give your shame to a crowd. I didn't post a statement. I didn't post a Notes app apology. I stared at the blinking cursor in a DM box to Ava and typed, "Thanks for the free PR." Then I deleted it and wrote something else. Deal. I'll keep the ring. You keep the receipts. I hit send. It felt petty and small. It felt like throwing a pebble at a storm. I put my phone face down the way she used to, pulled my laptop back onto my knees, and stared at Suture's landing page with its embarrassing 12 waitlist signups and a cartoon line that said, "We stitch what spreadsheets tear." I was 31 and falling. Sometimes you don't get a ladder. Sometimes you have to pick up the splinters and build one. The next morning, a blue-check DM slid into my requests like a lifeline with a hook. Audit Hawk, a forensic accountant with a mean Twitter game, had quote-tweeted the ranch video, and my reply, "Receipts, you say? Thread." He'd stitched screenshots from Ava's own public posts. Dinners with clients, she tagged, the kind with NDAs and invoices that could wake a dead CFO. Ubers at 2:11 a.m. to a condo on Rainey, owned by a brand director at a tequila portfolio Wilder Monroe had just signed. I didn't ask for this man's help. The internet is a mob, sometimes shapeless, sometimes precise. My DMs filled with strangers' teeth. Half of them defended Ava. He's probably a mooch. Men always cry potential. And half of them defended me because the pendulum never stays one place long. You think your life is a private house? It is sometimes a marketplace. Every comment is a price. Every silence is a bid. At 11:43 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. That's a phrase that belongs in thrillers and debt collection. I almost didn't answer. When I did, a woman's voice with smoke around the syllables said, "Is this Noah Reyes?" "Yes." "This is Marjorie Ellis, CFO at Kepler Unified. You don't know me, but my daughter sent me a video this morning of a ring in ranch. I'm sorry. That's cruel. It also reminded me I've had a reconciliation issue eating my month for 10 months. Your website says you stitch." A pause. "Can you show me?" I have pitched 1,000 times. To bored men in fleece vests and to small business owners who kissed their teeth and asked me if QuickBooks couldn't just do that. I have never pitched with hands that still smelled faintly of latex gloves from fishing a ring out of a sauce cup. I walked her through Suture's engine while fight music thumped through my floor from the gym below. Each bass hit like a heart remembering it had work to do. "Can you ingest from NetSuite and Oracle concurrently?" she asked. I could. "Can you show a demo using these 2 sample data sets?" She rattled off identifiers like a string of rosary beads. "Give me a few hours." 3, she said. "You have 3. I'll bring my controller." When the call ended, I stood very still and stared at my reflection in the floor-to-ceiling window, like it was a stranger who might help. 3 hours is 12 lifetimes in code, and no time at all. I wrote like a man with a match at his feet. I taped printouts to the wall like a detective who'd gone too far. I did ugly things to beautiful data and apologized to no one. I used duct tape and prayer. I used everything I had. At 2:58, the buzzer rang. 2 women in blazers that meant business climbed the stairs like they knew how stairs work when money is tight. Marjorie had a gray streak at the front of her hair like a lightning bolt. Her controller, Kiana, carried the kind of tote bag that holds both chapstick and catastrophes. "Show us," Marjorie said. I showed them. I stitched 2 rotten data sources into one clean ledger with a provenance trail you could take to a judge. Kiana swore softly at the screen, then louder, the way people swear when they realize a problem they've been blaming themselves for is a software flaw, not a moral failure. "How much?" Marjorie asked. "Pilot for 90 days. You can cancel if we don't save you at least 500 worker hours. After that, enterprise pricing at..." I named a number that wouldn't buy me a penthouse, but could buy me a door that locked better than my current one. "Done," she said, and stuck out her hand. "Send the MSA by 5. We signed the kind of contract founders print and frame. I didn't frame it. I sent it to my mother with no context. She sent back a heart and the words, "Keep going." I thought that was the day the tide turned. The universe is not that tidy. At 7 p.m., my landlord knocked and told me the building had sold. New owner, new rates. "Your unit goes to market next month," he said. "Give me notice by Friday if you want to stay." It was Wednesday. In the hall, someone's dinner burned. The smoke alarm made a noise like grief. At 9:12 p.m., Jonas showed up with Whataburger and a look I'd seen on him once before. When he came to get me after my dad didn't wake up, he set the bag down, turned my phone face up gently, and said, "Don't look, but the agency's socials are firing back. They posted a soft focus carousel about leaving toxicity. They tagged you without tagging you." There was a photo of Ava's hand, with no ring, resting on a marble bar. Wilder Monroe's caption said, "We elevate women who choose themselves." The internet applauded and threw tomatoes, as it always does. I took a bite of a burger I didn't want and felt the salt wake something raw in my mouth. Jonah said, "We can fight, or we can build." "Build," I said, because that was the only word I could still pronounce. At midnight, I sent one email to a list of 7 smaller agencies in town that I'd scraped from LinkedIn over the past year. Subject line, "Receipts." Body, "I can cut your month-end close from 15 days to 3. I won't change your culture. I will change your overtime. Demo Friday." At 12:02, a response came from a generic office manager account at a firm I didn't expect to ever answer. info@wildermonroe.com. "Hi Noah, this is Nora, office admin at WM. Marjorie is my aunt. She told me to watch your demo. This is off the record. We're drowning. If you can help, you should come tomorrow morning at 9. Do not say I emailed you." I stared. Then I laughed, a sound that surprised me. The world had already flipped me upside down. Maybe gravity worked differently down here. I didn't sleep. I ironed a shirt like that would erase ranch dressing from the internet. At 8:52, I stood across the street from Wilder Monroe's glass front and watched a creative director in a beanie herd a cluster of 20-somethings through the door like geese. The sign on the reception desk said, "We make brands feel human." I tried not to think about my grandmother's ring. Nora met me by the elevators with the nervous posture of a person who is breaking a rule in a building full of rules. She looked 23 and tired in the way office administrators always look, head full of other people's dilemmas. "Conference B?" she whispered, and handed me a temporary badge. "Blue lanyard. We only have 10 minutes before Ava starts staff stand-up." There are scenes you never plan to star in. Standing in a conference room in the company your ex runs point 4, laptop open, as a controller clicks through rows and columns that look like migraine. This was one of those. Kiana was already there, an emissary from a future where we didn't bleed hours on reconciliation. She pushed their sample data at me like a dare. "If you can stitch Wilder's disaster, you can stitch anyone." I began, aware of the way Nora glanced over her shoulder every 30 seconds. 2 minutes in, the conference room door opened, and the air changed the way it changes when a weather front arrives. Ava walked in mid-sentence, reading from a Slack thread on her phone, stopped, and looked at me the way women in old movies look at snakes. "Noah," she said, shaping my name like gum she hadn't wanted. "What are you doing here?" I didn't know there were 16 ways for a human to feel at once. Humiliation, memory, anger, the muscle memory of love, which is not love anymore. The instinct to apologize for occupying space, the equal and opposite instinct to plant your feet and say this floor belongs to physics, not to you. Before I could speak, Marjorie slipped in behind her. "I invited him," she said. "You want receivables to stop ghosting you? Let the man stitch. You can resume your brand healing circle in 10. Ava's jaw worked. She's good at composure. It's one of the things I loved and learned to fear. She set her phone face down next to the speakerphone and said, "Fine, you have 5 minutes. Do not break anything." I broke everything. That's a joke. I fixed things. But the path to fixing often looks like breaking. I pulled their QuickBooks exports and their Stripe dumps, their Shopify reports with names like finalq3.csv, and ran them through Suture, the screen filled with a neat central ledger that could have made a nun weep. A red overlay annotated every mismatch, every phantom dollar. The team leaned forward like they were listening through a wall. Kiana said, "I could cry." Ava said nothing. She watched the projections with the face she uses when she pretends to be bored to regain control. When it was over, she said, "What's your price, Noah?" "Pilot," I said. "No retainer. If we save you X hours, you pay Y. If we don't, you pay nothing." "Put it in writing," she said. And I saw the flicker. This was less about me and more about a house with joists that had begun to groan. She was balancing plates. She thought she could keep them spinning on other people's fingers. I left before the staff stand-up. The lobby smelled like eucalyptus and espresso, and a woman in a blazer complimented my shoes like we were at a different scene in a different life. In the parking garage, my phone chimed. It was a message request from a handle I recognized for the wrong reasons. Ate Tequila Guy. His profile photo was a polished jaw and the horizon at a resort I could never afford. He had liked Ava's ring video with 3 clapping hands. Now he was messaging me. "Brother," it began. Men who start like that are almost always about to lie. "No bad blood? WM is a killer partner. You know how it is. Business is business. She looks out for herself. You should too." I typed and deleted 19 replies. Then I sent a single sentence. "Every ledger closes." He sent back a laughing emoji. I blocked him. I am not above pettiness. I am, however, learning its half-life. That afternoon, the staff stand-up recording leaked. An intern with a guilty conscience or an exhausted soul uploaded a clip where Ava said, "We cannot let one person's narrative control our brand. We will speak our truth." I recognized her slides because I had helped practice for pitches in that same conference room when love was a thing we both believed in. It's a special kind of ache. Hearing your own tone on someone who no longer loves you, deployed against your life. By evening, I had 3 pilots. Kepler, a food CPG brand, and, officially, Wilder Monroe. Jonah ordered champagne, and I told him not to. Then drank it anyway, and felt the bubbles collect the broken bits inside me and float them up for a minute. I allowed myself hope. That's the problem with hope. You never budget for the cost of it. At 10:41 p.m., my mom sent a photo. She'd found the ring box in her junk drawer because that is where mothers put the things we can't look at yet. "I kept it safe," she texted. "Do you want it back?" I typed, "Keep it for now." "Okay," she wrote. "I'll keep it. Keep your receipts too." There is a kind of prayer that sounds like advice. Sometimes advice is the only prayer you have. The thing about viral is that it doesn't end. It mutates. The ranch clip spawned duets. Women tossing AirPods or old hoodies into bowls of queso. Men throwing car keys into ketchup and captioning it, "Keep the Honda Queen." Wilder Monroe leaned in. They launched a mini campaign called Osh Keep the Ring that sold choose-yourself hoodies in mauve. I learned what it means to be someone else's brand pillar. It means you hold up a building that crushes you. 2 days into the pilot, I sat shoulder to shoulder with Kiana in Wilder's back office, a room where tired people and numbers go to fight. We processed their September, then their August, rolling backward over the months like pulling a thread from a sweater and watching the whole thing give. The deeper we went, the worse it got. It wasn't fraud, it was chaos. Too many hands, too few systems. Receipts in inboxes like leaves in gutters. Ava's job is to make other people's noise feel like music. She had done it so well, the money had forgotten how to be disciplined. At 3 p.m., an email chime cut the air. Nora opened it, swallowed hard, and turned her screen toward us. It was from their bank. Notice of covenant breach. Their line of credit required a DSCR they'd failed. In English, the bank wanted its money cold, or it wanted conditions that would make breathing expensive. Hysteria is not a finance term, but it lives in emails like that. Within an hour, the partners were in a closed-door huddle, voices thudding through glass. I heard phrases that belonged to two kinds of people: founders and survivors. Bridge round. Convertible. Collateral. Who do we know who can float us? Names were said with the sighs of old debts being called in. A person says your name like that when you have been useful to them. A person says your name like that when you have been used. At dusk, I stepped outside into heat that stuck like a film. My phone rang again. Another unknown number. Mr. Reyes, this is Daniel Park from Longleaf Commercial. Longleaf is a debt fund. Their reputation: buy your debt on a discount when your blood pressure spikes and then ask you to stand up straighter. We've heard about Suture. From who? From people. What do you want? WM is about to trip. We hold some of their paper. We were impressed by your demo. If your engine can make their books legible, great. If not, we may be looking for someone who understands their choke points. Someone who could help us shepherd a change. Change, I repeated. Words that mean 10 things are always expensive. Interested in coffee? I don't drink coffee at night. Tea, then. It won't take long. We met at a place with rattan chairs and servers who looked like they'd seen secrets from both sides. Daniel was younger than I expected, with an accountant's haircut and a gambler's smile. He didn't waste time. Wilder has a brand and a bad habit. They pay creatives before they pay the bank. I understand it. Creatives light the lights. But lenders build the house. We can work with that. We can restructure. But we need someone to turn on the fluorescent lighting and point at where the mold is. You want me to snitch? I want you to save a company that may not deserve saving. I'm not a vulture. Good, he said. We have enough. I'm looking for a surgeon. He tipped his head like men do when they are about to ask if you want to sin. Hypothetically, if a restructure fails, we call the loan. We assume assets. In some cases, we credit bid and take the collateral. Sometimes we sell it. Sometimes we keep it. Occasionally, rarely, we partner with an operator. That operator buys a controlling stake for $1 and the debt. Loan to own is an ugly phrase. I prefer rescue. You care about WM because you care about someone there. Don't say you don't. What if you could build something better out of the wreckage? My brain ran forward and backward at once. This was revenge, sure. But it was also something else. Control is a lever you don't recognize until someone puts your hand on it and says, lift. I'm not qualified to run an agency, I said. I didn't say run, I said own. Owners hire operators. Owners set directions. Owners decide who gets health insurance and who gets severance. Owners decide what a ring is worth. He let that hang the way men like him let their watch peek from under their cuff. "If this were to happen," he said, "your reply would be dramatic." My reply? "Your message to the world when you execute the LOI. These stories like to be fed." I stood. "I came for tea. I'm leaving with a taste I don't like." He shrugged and handed me a card. "If you change your mind, time is short." Alker. I walked for an hour after that, down streets where college kids took photos of the sunset from parking decks, and a man in a burnt orange jersey tried to sell me a ticket to a game in a stadium that could swallow me without noticing. Jonah called. "You sound haunted," he said. "A debt fund just asked if I want to buy my ex's company out from under her." He breathed out a laugh that was not amused. "That's either the devil or a plot twist." "Both," I said. "Don't decide tonight." I didn't. But the next morning, Wilder's partners cut staff by 9. The girl who had cried at my demo packed a plant into a cardboard box and hugged Nora with that stiff hug people use in offices to pretend they aren't losing something important. Ava stayed behind glass and pretended to breathe water. At noon, my phone buzzed. It was from a number I'd blocked, the tequila guy. He had found a way around the block with another account. "Brother," he wrote, "I hear a fund is circling. Do the right thing and walk away. She's glowing." I didn't reply. I forwarded the text to Daniel with 3 words. "Let's talk terms." Lawyers have a smell. Not a bad one. A mix of paper and patience and risk. Margaret Chen, white-hot, silver-haired, 5'4" of "please don't waste my time," sat across from me in a WeWork we used to use on good days and laid out 3 paths on a legal pad. "1," she said, underlining, "you stick to software. Pilot Wilder, get paid, and go build suture into a thing that keeps people from bleeding out. 2, you sell to Longleaf. They buy your code, put you on a shelf, and you watch someone else put it on billboards. 3, we draft an LOI with Longleaf's help, stackhouse the debt, and credit bid to acquire Wilder Monroe. You don't need to run an agency to own one. You need a spine and an operator." "I don't want revenge," I said. It sounded untrue even to me. She smiled like a surgeon who knows where the tumor is. "You want the narrative back? Revenge is loud. Restoration is quiet. Which will feed you?" "Quiet," I lied. She slid a draft LOI across to me the way magicians slide a card to someone and ask if this is their card. The headline number was small. The debt number was large. The conditions were a forest of thorns. At the bottom, a line for public statement. Margaret tapped it. "In stories like yours," she said, not unkindly, "the public statement is part of the purchase price. I'm not a content creator. Everyone is now. We moved. Longleaf bought Wilder's debt at a discount that made my stomach roll. We didn't announce that. We waited. We waited while Kiana and I reconciled 3 more months and found ghosts that made Daniel send me text messages with cursing. We waited while Ava filmed a reels about choosing your peace in front of a neon sign that said, Wilder Monroe. We waited while a client pulled a scope because their VP's daughter had stitched the ranch clip with a hashtag that made the board nervous. On a Wednesday, Wilder missed another covenant. On Thursday, the bank sent a letter with the legal equivalent of a sigh. On Friday morning at 9:07, Longleaf did what Longleaf does. They called the loan. And at 9:09, we delivered the LOI. It should have felt triumphant. Instead, it felt like grief wearing a suit. I stood in the lobby with a security contractor and a locksmith like I'd walked into the wrong movie. Daniel handled the words. Margaret handled the iron. I handled my hands, which wanted to shake and didn't. The partners walked out one by one with faces that had forgotten their manners. A man whose title had growth in it said, "What the actual—" and stopped because the camera in Nora's hand made him remember his HR training. Ava came last. She wore black like funerals and pitched shoulders forward like she could stop a train with posture. She saw me, stopped, and something like heat rose into her face, then drained. "Noah?" she said, and it came out wrong. Softer than anger, harder than love. "What are you doing?" "Restructuring," Daniel said. She didn't look at him. She looked at me, an old habit. "Is this a bit?" "No," I said, and my voice held, thank God. "This is a purchase. Longleaf owns your debt. They'll credit bid to take assets. My LOI partners with them to keep the team, keep the clients, keep as many jobs as we can. The name stays for now. The insurance stays. The health plan gets paid." "And me?" she asked, chin up, only her left hand trembling. "It's funny the things you notice in a war." "That depends," I said, "on whether you want to be part of how we fix what's broken or whether you want to be a myth on the internet." It's not a good line. It's not a movie line. It was what I had. She laughed once, a small, brittle sound that cracked like ice under a boot. "Fix? You think you can fix something you don't understand? You write code, Noah. You think numbers tell the whole story. You've never had to sit across from a CMO whose marriage is a ruin and convince them their logo can be a raft. You've never fired someone who cried on your blazer and then thanked you in the same breath. You've never walked your own staff out when the bank took your chairs." Her eyes were wet and furious. "This is my name." "It still can be," I said, "if you want it to mean something different." Silence sits heavy in an office that just learned a new owner's name. Margaret broke it. "Ms. Monroe, we'll need you to sign this acknowledgement of receipt and return any executive access credentials that touch payroll and banking. If you wish to consult, we can discuss a paid transition. If not, I'm not signing anything right now. Then security will escort you off premises and will lock your credentials. Your staff will receive updated instructions by noon." Ava looked like she wanted to burn the building down with a look. Then she looked at the staff behind the glass. At Nora, at Kiana, at a copywriter with a tattoo of a swallow and an expression like a person whose shelter just moved 6 inches to the left. And something in her reconfigured. "Fine," she said, and signed. "You'll fail. And when you do, I'll buy it back with the contacts you can't even see." I didn't say the line the internet would have loved. "Keep the ring, loser." I didn't say anything about rings. I said, "I hope you don't need to." I wish I could tell you I felt clean after. I didn't. Ownership is a dirty business. Somewhere on the internet, a clip was probably being edited with my face over a villain and whatever sound was trending. At noon, we gathered the staff. Some had already updated their LinkedIns with "open to work." Daniel stood at the back like an unpopular chaperone. I stood in front, the man whose reply had bought the company, and tried to say a thing that would not rot when it touched the air. "I don't have a speech," I said. "You lost something today. So did I, months ago, in a way that fed this moment. I won't pretend this is noble. It's necessary. We're paying the health plan. We're honoring PTO. We're cutting executive salaries and not yours. We're keeping the intern program. We're paying vendors in the order they should be paid, not in the order of who yells the loudest. We're going to make the numbers tell the truth so your work can sing without drowning." Someone clapped once, awkward and human. Then others did, and I did what you do when a room tries to believe you. I believed them back. The press release went out at 3 p.m. Margaret wrote it with a scalpel. Wilder Monroe announces leadership transition via creditor-facilitated acquisition. New ownership committed to continuity of service, accelerated financial transparency, and employee-first restructuring. It was so dry you could light a cigarette with it. The internet didn't like dry. Reporters slid into my inbox like knives looking for places to fit. Isn't this revenge? Did you buy her company because of a viral video? Do you have a comment on the ranch? I wrote one response and sent it to all. We did not buy a person. We bought a mess. We intend to clean it up. Still, a leak is a leak. Someone at Longleaf, someone at Wilder, someone who wanted to feed the wolves, told a blogger that my reply bought her company. The headline wrote itself. He got dumped with a ranch ring. His clapback bought her agency. It spread like things spread now, fast and sticky. My inbox turned into a suggestion box for men with grudges. How do I buy my ex's yoga studio? Can I acquire my ex's boyfriend? The jokes were easy, mean, and often funny. That's the worst part. Ava posted a black square to her story with a paragraph about cycles of abuse and late-stage capitalism. I wanted to argue with the words. I didn't. We were both performing. Hers looked prettier. 3 days into ownership, I learned the most important lesson about fixing a place you didn't break. You must find a person who knows where the bodies are and loves the idea of digging them up in daylight. That person was Kiana. She ran payroll like a general in a war that had too many fronts. She traced a misapplied retainer that freed 30 grand and the kind of relief that makes a room of tired people laugh like kids. She told me who gossiped and who worked. Promote Nora, she said on day 4. She's the kind who makes the trains run. Give her money and a title before someone else does. We did. Nora cried in the bathroom, then came out with a spreadsheet color-coded like a rainbow for grown-ups. Small mercies buy more loyalty than speeches. We called clients. The good ones said, we were worried. The bad ones said, we were shopping you anyway. One man laughed when I said my name and asked if I had any sauce on me. He said kidding after, as if a joke does not bruise. We cut 2 clients who took and emailed on Saturdays like it was a hobby. We onboarded 2 we never could have landed without the press. That's the thing about scandal. It opens doors if you're not too bloody to push. A week later, my mom came to the office with a Tupperware of tortillas and a bag that made my stomach lurch. She set the bag on my desk and took out the ring box. I don't want to keep this in my house anymore, she said gently. It's not a grenade, but it feels like one. I opened it. The ring winked like it didn't know it had been a meme. I thought about pawning it, as the internet suggested. I thought about auctioning it for charity to score points in a game I didn't want to be playing. Instead, I asked Nora to bring me the intern. Her name was Sophie. She wore a sweatshirt 3 sizes too big and a key lanyard that said UT Austin. When she sat, I set the ring box between us. Do you know how many of your classmates would kill for a scholarship? I asked. All of them, she said, deadpan, which made me like her. Help me set up a fund. We'll call it the Keep the Receipt Scholarship. It goes to junior creatives who can't afford to take unpaid internships. We'll start with this. She blinked fast. You sure? She asked. Yes. She stood, then sat, then stood again. This, she gestured at the box, at the ring that had been in ranch like a swimming lesson gone wrong. This will play. I'm not doing it to play. I know, she said. That's why it will. That night, Jonah and I ate tacos on the back steps of the building like teenagers. He said, You're smiling. I'm tired. You can be both. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I hadn't saved because I would have deleted it if I had. Ava. Meet, she wrote. When? Now. Where? On the roof. She liked dramatics. I liked roofs. We met under a sky that had decided to do a Texas impression of cool. She lit a cigarette and didn't inhale. She used to only smoke when she wanted to feel like a French film. She handed it to me. I didn't take it. You humiliated me, she said. I didn't post the video, I said. I didn't throw the ring. You weaponized it. I built a thing and used it well. That's not a weapon. It's a tool. She laughed, soft and mean. You always did love your tools. We stood in a quiet that wasn't comfortable but wasn't combat either. Down below, the city moved without caring about us. I'm starting my own shop, she said. 2 clients already promised they'd come. Good, I said, and meant it. Competition makes you clean. You'll try to crush me. No, I'll try to outwork you. There's a difference. I paused. I'm not your villain, Ava. I loved you. That's not a weapon either. It's a history. She blinked like something had gotten in her eye. Do not make me a chapter in your founder story. You made yourself a headline, I said, and hated it as soon as it left my mouth because it was cruel and true, and nothing wins against those. She started to go, then turned back. Do they know? She asked. Who? The internet. What is there to know? That I was scared, she said, almost a whisper. That I didn't trust myself to love a man who loved a product more than he loved a party. That I wanted the kind of safety I could take a picture of. That I regret the ranch. Not the leaving. The ranch. I nodded. Regret is a good fuel if you burn it slow. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand, like the girl I first met at a gala after 3 drinks, when she confessed she hated small talk. Good luck, Noah. You too, I said. She left. The door shut behind her like a period. I stood alone and let the wind do what wind does. Touch you without asking, then move on. There's a moment when a startup stops feeling like a dare and starts feeling like a job. For Suture, it came on a Tuesday when Kepler's controller emailed. We closed in 5 days. I slept on a Friday for the first time in 8 months. For Wilder, it came on a Thursday when payroll ran without anyone hyperventilating. Small miracles, quiet revolutions. We hired a COO, a woman named Priya, who had run operations at a boutique firm in Chicago and had a gift for turning chaos into checklists. I will not be your therapist, she said in the interview. I will be your spine. We made her offer before the Skype hung up. She walked into the office on her first day and moved 3 desks 2 feet, and it felt like someone had cracked a window. We also hired a therapist, not on staff, on retainer, with office hours every Thursday morning in the small room with the good lamp. If you want people to stop bleeding out their feelings onto Slack, give them somewhere to bleed where someone knows what to do with the blood. The scholarship launched with a modest web page Sophie designed with a font that looked like a receipt printer. Keep the receipt fund, for creatives who can't afford to work for free. We auctioned the ring quietly. The buyer was a woman who messaged, I want to turn a bad story into a good heirloom. The check posted, and 4 students who write things and make things cried over Zoom. The internet barely noticed. It was perfect. Ava launched her new shop online with a name that sounded like a perfume. She posted a moody reel of her typing and looking out a window. Her comments were a war. I didn't read them. Priya took my phone from me at lunch and said, You cannot run a business and mainline the crowd. I nodded and took a bite of a salad that tasted like discipline. Then, because the universe hates complacency. The first lawsuit arrived. Not from Ava. From a client who claimed Wilder had promised a deliverable in a proposal a year ago that had never materialized. The email was all caps and biblical. We were promised a viral moment. Priya handled it with a tone that rehydrated adults into adults. Still, it scraped my ribs. Of course it did. My name was on the papers now. That evening, I found a notebook in the back of a cabinet when we were looking for a whiteboard marker that hadn't died. It was Ava's, from a season when she and I were something tender enough to bleed if we pressed. On the first page, a list. Pay Nora more. Automate payables. Stop letting clients text at 11 p.m. Find a way to make unpaid internships illegal. I read the last one twice. Then I put the notebook back and called Sophie into my office. Can you draft a policy? I asked. No unpaid anything, ever. Write it like a manifesto, then email HR like a policy. She grinned. Can I give it a name? Yes. She named it, We Pay You. 2 weeks later, Priya walked in with a printout. You're in the black, she said. I laughed in a way that sounded like a cough. For real? For real. I took the printout to the roof and sat in the exact spot where Ava had said regret was fuel, and watched the city go blue at the edges. I am not a man who cries easily. I cried then. It wasn't the big sob that looks good on film. It was the quiet leak you pretend is the wind in your eyes. My phone buzzed. A text from a number saved as Mom. How's my boy? She wrote. Above water, I replied. Remember, she replied. Storms look smaller when you're not drowning. Call me. I did. We talked about nothing and everything. Her arthritis, the neighbor's peach tree that got greedy, my father's old radio that still picked up stations nobody asked for anymore. I told her I'd bought a company. She said, be kind. The people didn't fail. The structure did. It's the kind of sentence that sits down in your chest and takes off its shoes. I slept that night without seeing ranch dressing in my dreams. Progress. There is a smell that comes with the first real crisis after a win. It's metallic, like coins in your mouth. It arrived on a Monday at 9:13 a.m., when Slack lit up with, "E channel, please check your email immediately." We had been fished, not hilariously, expensively. A senior account lead clicked a doc that looked like a Google Drive request from a client. It wasn't. The click unleashed a trickster god on our inboxes and invoices. Priya moved like she had choreographed this dance in her head for years. Kill Wi-Fi. Bring phones to the war room. Nobody touches a keyboard without a glove. Kiana locked the bank connections. Our IT contractor, a saint named Marcus, who wore black t-shirts with math jokes, hammered his keyboard like an exorcist. We spent the day stitching a different kind of tear. The damage, in the end, was less than the panic felt. 2 invoices got rerouted before we froze them. One email thread almost went to a competitor before Marcus tackled it mid-air. Everyone felt stupid. I bought donuts, and we said out loud what shame says in whispers. It can happen to anyone. And then we wrote a training that didn't sound like a lecture. At 6 p.m., a bouquet arrived at the front desk with a card that read, "Accidents happen. Sincerely, your favorite tequila." I recognized the handwriting. I imagined him laughing in a bar, the kind where men who always get served first clap each other on the shoulder, and the check arrives as if by magic. I threw the flowers out because the office smelled like metal already. That night, Longleaf sent over a revised term sheet. We had hit milestones, and they wanted to adjust the leash. More freedom, more oversight. That is the paradox of growth. You earn your way into more rules. Margaret read it and lifted one eyebrow so high it should have had subtitles. This is fair. she said. Which is to say, it could still kill you if you aren't careful. But we can live with fear. The next morning, I found a note slid under my office door. It was on Wilder letterhead from before my name sat under the logo. Noah. I'm back channeling a rumor because not everything needs a stage. Longleaf has a reputation for selling their stake once the headline fades. If you want to keep your house, find new lenders before they put yours on a listing. Also, stop buying donuts when people click bad links. Buy training and coffee. I'm serious about the coffee. I shouldn't have liked the note. I did. I had apparently a taste for women who could be right and unkind at the same time. Jonah told me once that this was an attachment style. I told him I preferred not to label myself sabotage. I emailed 3 debt providers. 2 ignored me. One sent a junior banker with a tie that was trying too hard. He took notes like his pen was spying. He asked 2 smart questions, and one that made me want to take a nap. We were not a fit. Priya went wide. She put out feelers to community lenders who didn't need headlines to do their job. Within a week, we had a term sheet we could swallow without tearing something. We closed the new line on a Wednesday at 4:17 p.m. and then bought nice coffee. Priya put a sign above the new grinder. Compliance juice. The office laughed the way a house laughs when the pipes stop groaning. On Friday, Sophie burst into my office with the feral joy of a young person whose plan worked. The scholarship entries, she said. They're insane. There's this kid in El Paso shooting spots on a phone who made me want to buy a product that doesn't exist. And a girl in Athens who wrote an ad about a sink that made me cry. Pick 4. Can we pick 5? Yes. She ran out the way joy leaves rooms, fast and loud and contagious. I watched her go and thought about the mom line, the one about people versus structure. The structure at Wilder had been a tilted house. We were lifting it beam by beam. Sometimes a rat still ran across the floor. Sometimes the lights flickered. Sometimes the city sent a letter about trash pickup like that would bring down a house. But it was standing. People could stand inside it and work without holding their breath. At 7 p.m., my phone buzzed. Ava again. I considered ignoring it, then didn't, because habits are hard to kill. Dinner, she wrote. Not a date, a truce. I typed, okay. We met at a place with string lights and picnic tables, because Austin likes to make everything feel like a backyard. She wore a blazer that did important work and sneakers that said, I run when chased. We ordered 2 things with names that made the server smile. I came to say thank you, she said when our drinks arrived. A tequila soda for her, a seltzer for me, because I didn't want my stomach to be a radio that night. Not for the acquisition, for Kiana's raise, for Nora's title, for the scholarship. Someone sent me the page. You always were a better person than you were a boyfriend. That's a cruel compliment, I said, but I smiled anyway because it was also true. You were a good boyfriend to an idea, she said, not to me. You picked a man who was a brand, I said. Not a man who would take out the trash. We sat with the kind of silence that is either the end of something or the beginning of being grown. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she said. I'm asking if we can be 2 people in the same city who don't flinch when we see each other at Whole Foods. Yes, I said. We can do that. We did. From then on, when we passed, we nodded like people who share a country and a war they'd both like to stop revisiting. We were not friends exactly. We were witnesses, which is a kind of intimacy grown-ups can survive. If the story ended with solvency and soft nods in grocery stores, it would be tidy and false. The internet has a long memory and a short attention span. It remembered me again when a podcaster with a true crime voice decided to do an episode titled The Ranch Ring Revenge. She invited me. I declined. She recorded anyway, with a thumbnail of me holding a blurred ring that I had never held in public. People sent it to me with popcorn emojis. I put my phone in a drawer. We launched version 2 of Suture with multi-entity support and a dashboard that made controllers cry in a good way. Kepler expanded. 2 agencies in Denver and 1 in Nashville signed on because accountants talk to each other the way parents do when they find a product that makes bath time less hell. Suture stopped being my little side project. It hired 2 engineers and an office manager who ordered snacks that didn't taste like sadness. At Wilder, Priya rewrote the org chart and stopped letting talent titles be prizes. "You can't have 6 VPs of nothing," she said. "Someone has to schedule the shoot." She promoted a producer named Eli, who had been carrying the department for years without a shoulder brace. He stopped looking like a man ready to resign and started looking like a man who could build a barn in a day. And then the letter arrived. A cease and desist from a law office with marbled stationery. The tequila brand claimed Wilder had defamed them in internal emails. They wanted a retraction and money and the sun and the moon. It was laughable and dangerous, a combination wealthy men are fond of. Margaret sharpened her pen and wrote back a paragraph that made me want to send her flowers in a way that would not violate HR. We prepped for court because sometimes bullies like a room where they can wear suits and pretend civility makes harm polite. The morning of the hearing, I put on a navy blazer that still fit and a tie my mother would approve. I walked past rangers' hats and strollers and a man selling a loat on a corner that had seen better. I felt that metallic taste again. Ava was there. Of course she was. This had been her client. She looked at me like a person looks at a man who might be useful in a storm. We sat on the same bench like people who had held hands once and now held separate breath. The judge was a woman who had seen men like the tequila guy and had run out of patience with performance. She listened. She asked one question that sliced the case in half. She wrote a ruling that was not a poem and felt like one to me. We left with our heads on, our pockets unpicked, and a warning to stop letting emails sound like podcasts. "Write like you're writing to your mother," the judge said. I sent that line to the whole company with a subject line, "Court-ordered style guide." Outside, Ava fell into step beside me. "Coffee?" she asked. "No," I said and smiled. "Compliance juice." She laughed in a way that didn't hurt. "Good line." "Thanks." We stood on the courthouse steps like a PSA and watched a bus go by with an ad for a gym that promised to turn you into someone your ex would regret losing. America is very good at selling revenge. It is not as good at delivering it. "Are you happy?" she asked. "I sleep," I said. "I eat. I don't check my phone in the middle of the night. The office has coffee none of us are ashamed of. My mother's radio still picks up stations that don't exist. The staff can take vacations without feeling like they betrayed a country. I don't know if that's happy. It's a life I can stand inside without crouching. That sounds like happy. Maybe." "And the ring?" she asked, unable to help herself. "Paid for 4 kids," I said. She nodded once like a person acknowledging a weather report. That night, I sat on the roof with Jonah and a 6-pack of something I didn't drink. We didn't talk for a long time. Then he said, "You did it." I did something. "You did more than you thought you could when the internet put you on a spit and turned you until you were purple." Graphic. True? He looked at me. "You know who this story belongs to?" "Who?" "You. Not the pods. not the comments, not the sad men who DM you for playbooks. You got to decide that. That's the revenge, not the purchase, the authorship. I let the word sit. Author. People talk about agency like it's a corporate thing. It's a human one. Downstairs, someone turned off a light, and the city felt like a person exhaling. Up above, the sky did its indifferent thing. A year later, they asked me to speak at a business school. I'm not a fan of rooms where everyone is 27 and certain, but Sophie had graduated and sent the invite. They'll listen to you, she wrote. Not because you bought an agency, because you didn't make content out of your own heartbreak. I told her that was the nicest read of my stubbornness I'd ever heard. I stood in a classroom that smelled like dry erase marker and ambition, and told a story about debt covenants and reconciliation engines. I did not say ranch. During Q&A, a woman with a nose ring asked, "What would you say to a version of you who just got that text?" I looked at the ceiling, the universal place where men look when they want to delay feelings. I'd say, "You will not die of this," I answered. And then I'd say, "Keep the ring. Keep the receipts. Keep your mouth mostly shut and your head down. Build what you said you would build. When you look up, build again." After, a small crowd formed the way small crowds do. A boy told me his girlfriend laughed when he said he wanted to start a catering company. He said he kept cooking anyway. A woman said her boss took credit for her deck. She said she took another job and her peace. I signed a girl's notebook with a sentence my mother had texted me. The structure failed. The people didn't. On the way out, my phone buzzed with a notification from a gossip account I never followed and always saw. A photo of Ava at an awards dinner, accepting a trophy for a campaign that had actually sold something to someone without lying. The caption did its slimy thing. I scrolled past quickly and then scrolled back and double-tapped. It felt right to market. It felt like making the city easier to live in. Back at the office, Priya handed me a P&L with numbers that made me say a word I don't say around my mother. Kiana updated a dashboard that looked like those roller coaster photos where everyone is caught somewhere between terror and joy. Nora booked a venue for a holiday party that had a dance floor and a coat check. Eli sent me a treatment for a spot that made me choke up alone at my desk, like a man who had learned that you can cry in business hours and still be a person. We threw the party 2 weeks later on a night the city decided to be winter. People wore outfits they had bought for a version of themselves they had needed to believe in. We played a song that made even Priya smile. At 11, someone shouted, "Speech," because that is a thing people shout when they are happy enough to want a reason for it. I stood on a small stage with a mic that smelled like tequila and said the truest thing I could find. "Last year, I thought the internet owned me," I said. "This year, we own our choices. We own our hours and our weekends and the fact that our Slack gets quiet at night. We own the coffee and the scholarship and the policy that says we don't pay an exposure. We own the fact that we turned a tilted house into a place where work can happen without someone holding up the ceiling with their back. We own our receipts." They cheered, because people like to believe in ownership when it doesn't cost them rent. When it was over, I stepped outside into air that smelled like cedar and cold. Jonah handed me a paper cup full of something steaming. My mom texted a photo of the tree she refuses to stop putting tinsel on. A junior designer posted a blurry story of her dancing, tagged the office with 3 hearts, and the caption, "We don't leave." I walked home. The city was quiet in the way cities are after they have been loud all day. I passed a storefront I hadn't noticed before with a sign in the window that said, in a neat hand, "Repairs done right." I smiled. I thought about the ring that had bought books and rent, and a way out for 4 kids who would make things I'd never imagine. I thought about the first demo and the way Kiana swore softly like a person being freed. I thought about the email from my mother with no words and a link. And the day I wrote, "You keep the receipts." If you're listening because you stayed to the end, because you waited to see if the man in the ranch video got his dignity back, here's the part I didn't expect. I didn't get revenge. I got a life. Drop a "still here" in the comments if you've ever been underestimated and didn't die of it. And if you need a sign to keep building your little side project after someone throws a ring at you on the internet, let this be it. Keep the receipts. Keep your hands busy. Keep your name.